Throw a second.
Minister, this question just relates to the provision of English language classes for new Irish and new people who come to live here. But I think it's one of the factors that greatly affects their ability to integrate into Irish society is their ability to speak the language, and I think that's really important. So I think we have to look at expanding that role and look at expanding the number of hours that are available to them.
Thanks, Deputy Pringle, for your very important question. My department and Solace fund English for speakers of other languages training and for migrants through 16 educational training boards. Adult programme refugees have access to an initial 8-week language training and orientation programme in a number of ETBs under the resettlement strand of the Irish Refugee Protection Programme. Following resettlement in the community, a full language and training programme is put in place by the ETBs, and that is up to 20 hours a week for a period of 1 year. Outside of the arrangements for programme refugees, contact hours for English language learners are determined by the local ETBs in these areas. These decisions are based on local demand, learner skill requirements, and ETBs they regularly, I believe, discuss these demands and service requirements with Solace as part of the annual funding process. An analysis of the data on reported beneficiaries and expenditures for ESOL and refugee resettlement up to and including October 2018 indicates that 14,749 beneficiaries availed of the ESOL, that's the English for Speaking of Other Languages, while 1,340 beneficiaries availed of the Refugee Resettlement Programme. And the combined expenditure so far for ESOL and refugee resettlement was reported at about 5,400,000, with a combined beneficiary total of 16,090. In March 2018, Solace and ETBI published English language provision and language assessment for low-skilled and unemployment migrants, and recommendations for good practice at NFQ levels 1 to 3 in ETBs. The report acknowledges that progress can be slow with some learners, if you like, due to the less intensive provision and insufficient opportunity for learners to use the English, if you like, what they learn in the classroom outside of the classroom. And the report recommends that provision should be for a minimum of 200 hours per week. And can I say that the report's recommendations, including the movement towards more intensive provisions, are currently being processed by Solace and by the ETBs.
Well, so I'm sure you'll agree with one of the factors that greatly affects a person's integration into Irish society is their ability to be able to speak the language and to be able to speak English, and that is what will affect them. So I'm interested in, you spoke there about that there's a course of up to 20 hours per week for a period of 1 year. I know from talking to people, members of the community who are affected, and that they aren't aware that this amount of time is available to them. Most of them are dealing with maybe a 3-hour or 2-hour session once a week, which isn't adequate in terms of them actually learning English and being able to perform and work within Irish society at that level. So, I mean, the 20 hours per week is interesting. I'd like you to explain more about that, and actually, is it at the discretion of the various ETBs whether that's made available or not, because I think that's going to be important, because really and truly every bit we spend on improving the English language ability of refugees and asylum seekers will actually improve their integration and actually will pay dividends to the state in the long run. So the cost will not be a factor, I believe.
Minister Halligan.
I can say quite categorically that within the Refugee Resettlement Programme, participants are entitled to the provision of 20 hours per week in the first year of resettlement, and that's where refugees are resettled. The ETBs can then offer more than 20 hours per week. But I can say this, that we have found with an assessment that sometimes 20 hours per week is too much for many refugees. They're settling into their home, they have children, they're in schools, and the environment and the community are all new to them. So it is not always the case that that they can take up to 20 hours. I just want to assure the Deputy that within the Refugee Resettlement Programme there is an entitlement there for 20 hours. Can I also say that some ETBs are allowed to use what they call a banking system, where those who are capable of, if you like, attending to 20 hours per week will be offered 20 hours, but for those whose language skills are particularly weak, or if there is literacy there, they can take a slower approach, and it's at the discretion of the ETBs to offer more hours. And I believe, speaking to Solis and some of the ETBs, that they do that. But just to answer your question, yes, within the resettlement programme, the provision is an entitlement of 20 hours per week. That's for the first year.
Final supplement.
Okay, and if the refugee or asylum seeker feels that they can do more hours, is it open to them to actually talk to the ETB and get that availability? Because there's a question of the ETB offering it, but there's also a question of the person if they have the ability. You say, which is probably possibly true, that some people might have difficulty in managing the extra time, and that depending on their level of education and level of English anyway. But is it open to the refugee or to actually ask for more? Because I think that's vitally important. Thanks.
I think just, I should say there's additional classes, what they call a one-to-one tuition, is available and is offered, and is available for learners with very weak language skills, literacy difficulties in their own language, and which can be, of course, more beneficial to the particular learner. Now, I don't have the statistics or the facts, but I can get them for you. Is there a take-up on that? Again, what I would say is that the onus is on the ETBs, and the ETBs can offer more than 20 hours a week. But we do find that many refugees are not able, for reasons, as I explained earlier on, to take the 20 hours. But the ETBs can offer more 20 hours. And also, again, just to reiterate, that a one-to-one tuition is offered by most ETBs, as far as I know. But I will come back to you with all the facts and stats.
Deputy.